Saluton from BA. This is a Rorshok Multilateral update from the 3rd of December 2024. A summary of what's going down in the world's major multilateral institutions. On Friday, the 29th of November, Ukraine's President Zelensky suggested that NATO membership for Ukrainian-controlled areas in the war could end the immediate stages of the conflict with Russia. He still insisted that membership must apply to all of Ukraine's internationally recognized borders. NATO's leader, Mark Rutte, also said this week that the alliance needs to do more to help Ukraine. With Russian aggression showing no signs of stopping, some in the NATO alliance are increasingly calling for an end to the war, even if it means Ukraine ceding some territory to Russia. The war continues to push Ukraine to the forefront of multilateral politics. Ukraine urged the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE, to step up pressure on Russia on Wednesday, the 27th of November, following an intercontinental ballistic missile strike on Dnipro several days prior. Ukraine highlighted the need for stronger international sanctions and the closure of loopholes involving Russian allies like Iran and North Korea. OSCE member states reaffirmed their commitment to supporting Ukraine despite Russian threats. Meanwhile, a senior UN official urged an immediate ceasefire in Gaza on Monday, the 25th of November. Highlighting the ongoing humanitarian crisis as winter approaches, Muhammad Hadi, the Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, briefed the Security Council on the devastating impact of the conflict. Some trucks carrying aid have been looted, which has made helping Gaza in wartime much more difficult. There has also been escalating violence in the West Bank. Countries in the UN and even in the UN Security Council have taken different approaches to the conflict, with the United States being the biggest supporter of Israel. Still on the Gaza conflict, on Thursday, the 28th of November, Josep Borrell, the EU foreign policy chief, urged member states to honor the decisions of the International Criminal Court, or ICC, including warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for alleged war crimes in Gaza. The warrants cite crimes like murder and using starvation as a weapon during the Gaza conflict, which Israel vows to contest. France and Italy questioned the possible enforcement of the warrant due to Netanyahu's status as a world leader. Moving east, Georgians protested through the weekend against the government's decision to pause EU membership talks. Over 100 arrests were made on Friday, the 29th of November, as clashes erupted in Tbilisi, with police using water cannons and heavy force against protesters and journalists. Demonstrations were protesting the fraud and coercion in the recent parliamentary elections, key for EU aspirations, which were rigged with Russian help. Philemon Yang, the UN General Assembly president, called for urgent collective action to address Sudan's humanitarian crisis on Tuesday, the 26th of November, especially after Russia vetoed a Security Council resolution meant to protect civilians. The conflict, sparked by a military power struggle in April, has displaced almost 12 million people, with over 3 million fleeing to neighboring countries. The ongoing civil war that started with two generals vying for power has seen many international attempts at mediation with little success. Yang emphasized the shared responsibility of the UN bodies to ensure peace and security, criticizing the increasing use of veto power that paralyzes the Security Council's ability to act. In Asia, the International Court of Justice will begin hearings on Monday the 2nd on a landmark climate change case that the Pacific Island students from the small nation of Vanuatu initiated. The case seeks an advisory opinion on state obligations to prevent climate change and the legal consequences for nations causing environmental harm. This case stems from concerns about rising sea levels and cyclones impacting Pacific nations and could influence future climate action by strengthening legal frameworks and encouraging accountability from major polluters. On Thursday, the 28th of November, at an Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, conference in Hong Kong, China's ambassador to ASEAN criticized the US-led alliances for undermining peace in the South China Sea and East Asia, and accused the US of heightening regional tensions. The comments reflected disagreements over territorial rights in the South China Sea. Next up, the International Labour Organization, or ILO, reported that global wage inequality dropped significantly this century in a study released Thursday, the 28th of November. Poorer countries experienced the most significant wage inequality reduction, which was between 3 and 10% annually this century. While wages have risen in many developing countries, disparities persist between higher and lower income economies. Issues like insufficient minimum wages, underemployment, and wage stagnation in certain sectors continue to hinder progress. In poor countries, a study showed that almost a quarter of workers are underpaid. Additionally, the study found that the lowest paid 10% of workers in the world make less than 1% of total salaries, while the highest paid 10% of workers make almost 40% of total salaries. The ILO called for stronger policies to ensure more equitable wage distribution worldwide. In the Americas, on Wednesday, the 27th of November, the Inter-American Development Bank announced that it is financing the Bahamas' efforts to upgrade its water supply and sanitation services. The $100 million investment includes a $50 million loan to improve potable water access in New Providence and the Family Islands. This project will benefit hundreds of thousands of people by expanding water coverage and improving sewerage services. It also addresses operational and financial sustainability issues, focusing on reducing non-revenue water and improving climate resilience. A group from the Organization of American States, or OAS, led by former Costa Rican President Laura Chinchilla, discussed women's participation in regional politics during a 2-day visit to Guatemala, which began on Tuesday, the 26th of November. The group's goal was to advance recommendations from the OAS electoral observation missions, focusing on issues like preventing violence against women in politics and improving gender equality in candidate nominations. In global issues, UNAIDS released a report on progress in eliminating AIDS on Tuesday, the 26th of November, ahead of World AIDS Day, which was held on Sunday, the 1st. The report highlights the critical role of human rights in ending the AIDS epidemic this decade. It also underscores that despite progress, human rights violations block access to vital HIV services. With about 40 million people living with HIV and rising infections in some regions, the report calls for an inclusive approach to address barriers like criminalization and gender-based violence, which lead people to seek less care for medical treatment and result in higher rates of transmission. The world faces uncertainty as Donald Trump's potential return to the US presidency looms over its future, and the World Trade Organization, or WTO, is reacting. The WTO's president tried to dispel concerns on Friday, the 29th of November, by expressing excitement to work with Trump, stressing the importance of cooperation on intellectual property protections and other trade-related matters. Tensions are particularly high as Trump has threatened trade wars and sweeping tariff reforms meant to target some of the most important economies of the world, including some significant trading partners of the United States. Closing this edition on Wednesday, the 27th of November, the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, launched an innovation facility to tackle global migration challenges. The facility aims to foster collaboration with the IOM, its partners, and communities to co-create sustainable solutions, including projects like electronic waste management in refugee settlements and neonatal care systems. And that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Do you know that besides the Rorshok Multilateral Update, we also do others? Our latest ones are the Arctic Update, about the area north of the Arctic Circle, and the Ocean Update, about the 70% of the world covered in salt water. The other ones are all country updates. We have a selection of countries from Africa, Asia, South America, and Europe. Check rorshok.com/updates for the full list. The link is in the show notes. See you next week!